Yo, everybody, what's up? Back for another episode of Tay's World. I believe this is episode 24 or 25. I have a guest on from the Liberty community who I met on Twitter. We haven't talked much except for a couple minutes prior to the podcast. His name is Jose Galison. I'm going to go with it.
I usually like to just go Galison. We were talking before. It's a made-up name, so it doesn't really matter anyways. But, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, man. All right. So we were talking about, or I guess, let me ask you my first question. So what got you into podcasting? How long have you been doing it? Yeah, we'll go from there.
I think podcasting it's got to be 7 or 8 months now. I started, it was the height of the coup. Me and my buddies it started up this other project that was we were trying to create like a network of Facebook groups to kind of like help connect people during like the COVID and stuff. And it was supposed to be liberty focused.
Nice.
The goal was to be like non-political because our theory was that was what divided us the most, because a lot of people get all caught up in that side. So it was more just about having a network of people that like, and that way you have people you can lean on. And then there was other like projects in there as well. Kind of end up like it had a real big boom and then kind of petered out because like Facebook, it was right around the time Facebook started getting really crazy with its like censorship, and like it became impossible to basically run a group or even just operate on Facebook, even not being like a shitlord, like just me, like, cause I used to be like shit post like crazy on Facebook and cause problems for fun. But then like once I started doing that, I kind of chilled out a little bit. But like there got to a point where Facebook, I don't really ever do anything on Facebook except for drop promos now because it's a nightmare. It's like I think the last time I was on Facebook, I got banned within like, not banned, but I got like a quick little like 12-hour restriction. And I was literally messing around with a friend. I think I called the buddy a faggot, but it was like a buddy. Like, you know what I mean? It was like clearly in jest. Like it was my friends. And I'm like, immediately, I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So I was like, okay. I mean, it's just, that was I was bringing that up to kind of like highlight how it basically became a failed thing. I mean, I don't know if I'd say failed because a lot came out of it. So I started out with my YouTube channel. Like I initially created what was the Liberty Movement YouTube channel, and the which was because it was the Liberty Movement was the name of the thing on Facebook, and it was supposed to be an outlet for it, and it was like the idea was to help bring up content creators. And so what we did was had like a rotating thing of shows, and like we would take some people who already had established shows and just use old content to kind of like promo them. And then I also created my own podcast to kind of help boost it, to kind of like, move it along. And that did well. I never really like catch on. And it also was like, I mean, anyone listening, if that's something that sounds like you'd want to run, I still have the channel. I just don't really use it anymore.
Okay.
It was very, I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. It's got a couple hundred subs. But anyways, it just got a point where it's too much to handle because I had to like drop new episodes every week. I had to rip YouTube things from other pages, talk to other content creators. It was just this whole thing. And it was too much for me. I mean, I have a busy life. I mean, if some single guy out there who wants to like use it as like a springboard for their show or some shit, it would work well. But anyways, it came out of that. I got to the point where I couldn't handle that anymore. So I just jumped off from there and only did my own podcast. That's more manageable. I mean, even now it's like the bigger it gets, the more of a handful it is dealing with like scheduling and stuff like that. But I mean, it's pretty simple now. It's definitely way simpler than when I was running that other channel as well, which was like the rotating thing. So yeah, that's what got me into it. I've been doing like 8 months or so. I was using it to like kind of boost up this other concept I was doing. And then I don't know, it kind of died out, and then it was left with that. And I'm glad I'm doing it. I have a lot of fun. I get to talk to cool people.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I make a tiny bit of money. I mean, it's another revenue stream, a tiny bit. I mean, obviously it's not enough to be like, that's why I do this. Cause it's like, but it's enough to like, make it easier to justify to my wife.
I love it, dude. Yeah. All right. So go into that for me a little bit, because I'm sort of what is it? The RSS feed, the like, I use Buzzsprout. I'm trying to think of what that is. It's the podcast host. What do you use? Do you use Anchor? What do you use?
I use Red Circle, which cool. It was actually Mark Claire himself who, like, I don't remember why we were talking about it, but he like, I don't know if you know him from Lines of Liberty.
No,
he's
I
like
don't.
the head guy.
Mark Claire.
Some people out there like, how the fuck do you not know him? He's kind of a big deal. I mean, not like Dave Smith, a big deal, but he's been around since like the days of fucking Tom Woods, like in the beginning.
All right,
So
good shit. Fuck
he's an
yeah.
OG. But anyways, yeah, me and him were talking, and he said for some reason he's like, "Hey, you should go with Red Circle." I guess that's the one he used. I have no idea. I'm a tech idiot, so I don't know the pros and cons of why. I just someone that I respected said it worked for them, so like okay, and it hasn't failed me since.
Awesome.
I also do YouTube as well, so like I do both.
So do you have to pay for Red Circle? Do you have to like pay monthly? No, you don't.
No, it's
All right.
free. So I don't. I mean, I know there are ones you do have to pay. I don't have to pay for that one. So I don't know
Yeah,
what pros and
dude.
cons come with that. Maybe it's one of those things that like maybe once I get to a certain size, it'll be an issue. I have no idea.
Yeah, because
So
okay, so the reason I have Buzzsprout, and Buzzsprout you do have to pay a monthly fee, but the catch with, well, I guess not the catch, the pro with Buzzsprout is that it doesn't matter how large your content gets, right? Buzzsprout never owns any of your shit. You always keep the content, like it's always yours. You can move it off Buzzsprout, whatever. And I'm gonna have to do my research on Red Circle because I'd rather not pay money. But I know that the catch with Anchor, which might be similar to Red Circle, is it's free, but the content is not technically all yours, right? So if you get to a certain point, Anchor might be like, yo, we're gonna need a slice of that fucking revenue that's coming in. I have no idea if that's
I get
the
what
same.
you're saying. They skim up because I do know a lot of them have options for like monetizing once you get to a certain size when it comes to those. So I don't know. Maybe that plays into the thing. Maybe they boost your shit. I don't know. I don't know all the pros and cons. I mean, I'm not really big enough to really be that concerned about it either.
Dude,
so it's like
neither am I. Neither am I.
I'm just trying to get it out. If I ever get to a point where I'm concerned that they're trying to pull some sort of lame ass IP shit on my content, like I don't care. I'm like, I mean, if anything, at that point, it's kind of like suffering from success. So
yeah, true. So true. Honestly, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, because I'm kind of sitting here and I'm like, this shit's kind of fucking adding up as far as cost goes.
Yeah.
So you said you're making a little bit of revenue. So I don't, we don't need to go into specifics, but how are you making that revenue?
Money wise, I use Patreon. That's where pretty much the only money I'm getting.
Right.
Only
Okay.
because
Fuck yeah, dude.
I started. I don't remember what. Probably around episode 20 or 30. I started doing it just because of the point. Like I did have overhead, and it was like, I don't know. I guess I just hated to like literally be using time and losing money. So it's like all I wanted to do was at least break even or not lose as much money. Now that I have nothing against making money, I do make a little. I probably make about enough to fucking fill up my car 1.5 times a month now. Like and it's nothing. I mean, I'm very grateful for my patrons, for anyone listening, but it's not anything. I'm not fucking rolling in the dough. I mean, anyone who's in this game to make tons of money, like you better get out. Even that, I would surmise, even some of the big dogs probably don't make as much money as we think they do.
I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all.
I'm not gonna guess at it, but I would assume like most of them have other jobs. Like for example, like I don't know how much Pete Quinones makes. I don't know if you know him, but he still works on the side. So I would assume if he's fucking making bank off this, he would like. No one wants to also work. Like why would he do that? He's made it very clear. I don't think he really cares too much for that. So point being, I mean, I don't know. I would hate to try to guess at how much they make off this, but this is not the place to get rich. I think it's not bad to have another revenue stream. I mean, but even then, it's like I'm gotten to the point where I fucking basically make a roughly, I mean, not to put specifics, but roughly be able to fill up my car once a month.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I had to put in like 7 or 8 months worth of work of like constant, like this is not like
100%.
Yeah. And even then on the other end, it's not like you're like, obviously not everyone is destined to get to a Pete Quinones or a Dave Smith or whatever. And even then they probably, I would be blown away if they made more than 100K off of the podcasting.
Oh yeah, dude. I don't think anywhere
even
close.
Like, I mean, even like Dave, I don't even, so it's like, this isn't this, then that's like the top tier fuckers. So
yeah.
So this is not, there's nothing wrong with making a little money, but it's also like, if you're listening, you're like, I might want to get a podcasting. You probably shouldn't look at it. If that's your primary goal, like I know there are a million other things you can do that are far more profitable.
No, straight up. If profit, right. Yeah. I agree with you 100%, man. If profit is your goal, go get a job on the weekends or some, I don't know, find something else to do. Cause for me, dude, I got into this because I was just like, originally I got into it because I wanted to do a sports podcast, but then I was like, I don't really give that much of a fuck about sports to the point where I want to be talking about it all the time. And I was like, I give a lot more of a fuck about sort of liberty and sort of discussing what's going on in our society, right? And sort of trying to parse through this stuff. And like, I don't know, man. I kind of, my podcast is it's called Tay's World. My name's Taylor, right? It's all the shit that I'm interested in. You could be in, XYZ profession, doesn't matter. I'm honestly, here's a question I have for you, man. Have you ever had somebody who is totally polar opposite politically from you on your podcast? And how did it go if you did? Because
I
I'm
don't.
debating doing it. Like, I want to get like a socialist, like a hardcore socialist on here and just not like throw jabs, but just be like, why do you feel that that's the way to go?
I don't know. I can't. I mean, I don't think I have. I think I'm mostly talking to Liberty people. Not that I was necessarily against it. At the same time, I'm also. I don't. I also don't see myself as. I don't see myself as an intellectual, or I'm not here because I feel like I have some great thing to bring to the table. If anything, I just more like want to talk to people and
Fuck yeah,
something
dude.
like that. Like maybe if we're just talking, I would have someone on just talk. But if it's going to be like combative, I don't. I don't want to like give people the impression that I'm here representing libertarianism
Oh,
and
dude, same.
going to bat because it's like they're gonna be like, oh, look at him. Like, dude, I feel like I'm relatively smart, but I don't know. That was just that's not necessarily what I'm looking to do. I'm definitely open to looking into other things. But yeah, I don't know. I just haven't. I also partially like I guess for me it's also I want to have conversations with that are what I would enjoy. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily that I'm like hiding from like I don't want to talk to a socialist, but it's like I mean maybe if there's a socialist I found interesting, that was
yeah,
like because I usually will kind of scope people out when I'm looking for appearances, like kind of get a vibe for them, be like, would I be able to mesh well with them talking? Because there are some
yeah.
actually big people out there that I don't even know. Like I would might interview simply for the fact of them being big, but I'm not necessarily pursuing them because of the fact that I'm like, and not anything against them. It's just like I don't really have anything I want to talk to them about, or maybe I personally don't find them that interesting, or whatever, like so for me it's about like I'm more just like looking for people I find interesting, and I guess that's kind of the place I want to play. But if I could find someone that's
Absolutely.
interesting, especially like an Ancom or an Ansoc, I could go for that. It's just that we just normally don't swim in the same circles. So I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
want to. I've been on once with Magnus, who's a mutualist, which is not at all like. I wouldn't say it's opposite. I don't know if familiar with
No,
mutualism
yeah,
or
please go ahead.
yeah.
Define, what does that mean?
I mean, I don't want to. Okay, I'm kind of a retard. I literally like on our last episode when I had my he wasn't on my show. I went on another show and we kind of had like a round table type thing, and we were talking, and we did get him to explain it. So I'm just like secondhand definition, but it's almost it's almost like a weird mix between like ANCAP and a socialist. Like their big thing is like they believe you can own property, but they don't believe that you can own property that you don't like reside in. And I don't know. I mean, I don't claim to represent them well. So like basically this would be an issue of like if you're a landlord that has multiple properties. Now, like I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, said they do believe that you like say you have a house and you have a spare room, whatever, rented out. But
Okay,
that's different
okay.
than like owning an apartment building that you don't live in and you're fucking. But I don't know, whatever. But also on top of that, which I don't necessarily agree with that. But he's also explained too that the one of the key things with mutualism is they don't agree like in any way aggressing against people who don't agree with them there. Because that's a big thing with commies and socialists. They'll be like, they'll see property as essentially almost like a violence or an aggression because you're taking something that isn't yours.
Yeah.
But mutualism more like, well, we don't think they should do that, but we're not gonna we'll let them operate under their assumption they have the right to kind of deal. So they have
Yeah.
this weird like in between like commies, socialists, and like capitalists. It's kind of weird. I mean, I haven't done any reading on it. So I would like to get more into those lines of thoughts and even some of the other lines of thoughts. But I don't know. I definitely wouldn't want to be in a combative role because I'll be honest. I haven't studied their. I mean, obviously, I've hung out in Liberty World and like listened to other people debate socialists or commies, but I guess I'd be more interested in actually like understanding the underpinnings of their like where they're coming from, as opposed to like, well, this is why socialism is dumb or whatever. Like I would
Yeah.
like to understand where they're coming from and try to get in the perspective of like, oh, okay, I can see that. Not that I'm necessarily trying to become a commie or a socialist, but like I'm not running from ideas either.
Yeah,
So
no, no,
yeah,
no. Dude, I'm totally with you. I'm not on here to try to listen. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a total dumbass, right? Like
yeah,
I try to figure this shit out, and I act as smart as I can. But if I don't know something, I'm gonna be like, I don't fucking know, dude.
yeah,
So for me, I think I would agree with you. My point for having somebody like that on the podcast would just be to enlighten me. Be like, why? What exactly are you fighting for? Why do you label yourself as this? Like, what are the key points here?
yeah. And a lot of these philosophies and stuff, they have underpinnings. I mean, you may be able to be like, well, this is why they're wrong, but I feel like it pays to understand. For example, like I've really advocated a lot to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't like Sterner or like Egoism that run in our circles, which I don't know if you're familiar with them, but like that, I'm like, I do think there's a lot to be gained from it. And I got a lot from my reading of Sterner. I got to really do interesting perspective on things and change the way I look at certain things. But it doesn't mean you have to.
So if you want to go, Sterner he's an author, obviously.
Yeah, he's a long dead one. I'm not a historian, so I'll fuck it up if I try to give like the details. But
Okay.
essentially, his thing was egoism, like it's Max Sterner, and his thing was egoism, and it's almost kind of similar to like Ayn Rand and like the objectivism, and it's kind of like how selfishness isn't a bad thing, but he takes it to its like extreme, to where it's like literally the focus is the individual, and everything starts from there. So he like kind of has this whole perspective of how everything is about the ego, and basically what's the word, like radiates out from there. So like you like basically it's not hiding from the fact that like you are your prime concern, and everything comes out from there. I mean, we could do a whole long discussion of egoism, but yeah. But my point being is, even if you don't agree with egoism, because a lot of people get upset with some of the conclusions that come out of that, but it's like at the very least, it's like you can get a new perspective. I think it also, I do think one of the big things is our kind is, I think we a lot of like to hang out in an objective world where like this is objectively this and this is objectively that. Whereas a lot of like Sterner's ideas hang out in like the subjective place where it's like, well, this is subjectively this. And I feel like it's a good thought experiment to hang out in those spots a little bit, whether you agree with it or not, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. That's a really interesting theory. So egoism, an ethical theory that treats self-interest as the foundation of morality.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, he would actually say morality is a spook, and that essentially that all that matters is that you do what is best for you. And that sounds ridiculous, but just like Ayn Rand kind of says as well, but if you compound that amount amongst every single individual, what is best for everybody is what is also best for the individual to an extent. So it's like, it's kind of the idea. A lot of people get caught up in like libertarian theory and like the NAP, or like, you know, like, well, why if we say, let's say like if morality was subjective, why wouldn't people just be warlords, and why wouldn't they just go around killing people and do this and that? But it's like, at the end of the day, like you never know what side of the equation of any given circumstance you're going to be. And I feel like it's not really that hard to be like, hey, you don't want people to hurt you, right? Yeah, most people would agree with that. You don't want people to fuck with your shit, right? Yeah, most people agree with that. Well, wouldn't it make sense if we also then advocated others to do that? Be like, hey, this is how we can coexist peacefully. Like, and this is from a completely selfish autistic perspective, you can come up with this, that like, hey, what is best for me is if I get everybody to do this, and I also do it as well to ensure that other people do it. Because if they see me acting out from that mold, they're not going to want to act kindly towards me. Yeah. So it's really not that deep of a concept. I mean, we make it way more deep than it needs to be. Yeah. And that's kind of, in a sense, where egoism kind of comes from. Because a lot of people are like, oh, the egoism, you know, like, for example, his conception of property is like that what you have. Like, so like basically in egoistic rights, like, let's say I go to my neighbor's house and I just fucking slaughter my entire neighbor's family, and then I fucking bury them in the backyard, and I just start living in their property. By egoistic rights, yep, that's your property. But it's because you have that property. You took that property. But in a normal world, like, I mean, that sounds ridiculous. Like, it's more like I've been saying lately that he describes the is, whereas like we focus on the ought a lot. So like he is like, this is what is. If you go take something and you claim property of something and no one does anything about it, for all intents and purposes, it is yours. Some other person can go, well, you don't have a legitimate property right, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, if they don't do fucking anything about it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, that's yours. Like, I mean, you can say it's not because of natural rights or this or that, but it's also kind of like, that isn't a good way to go about living life. So, so and I would say egoism doesn't advocate that. It's more just describing what is. And the idea that like these ideas of like property rights we have and stuff are kind of almost describing an ought, when it's like, we're just like, we can say this is objectively this or objectively that. I'm like, well, is it? Like, how do you know it's objectively that?
Yeah, that's the thing, man. That's the funny thing about saying that things are objective or looking at things from a quote unquote objective lens. It's like, yeah, but humans created the objective, right? Like there is no objective party that is like sending transmissions down from, the heavens being like, this is the way. It's like, no, that's not.
Even in a religious conception, you could say that you could agree that, okay, maybe there is an objective morality and God is what determines objective morality. But even then, in a real world sense, there might as well be no such thing, because you still are interpreting all of that through subjective lens. So, yes, you can say there's an objective morality, but it's like, it's also this ungraspable, untouchable thing that you will never, because of humanity and not being able to grasp that, will never be able to attain, like, ever. So, like, for all intents and purposes, in a real world sense, even if there is objective morality, there might as well not be, because we're operating through subjective lens. And also, it's kind of a non-starter too, because I find, like, say, to bring the religious one, let's say your religion is correct. Your God says this, and this, your God is real in this example, and this is objective. If you go to some person with another conception of God that obviously in this hypothetical is wrong, and you go, well, objectively this because blah, 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 like, it's a non-starter. It's like, even like, that's my whole point of, like, even if there is objective morality, we're still, you might as well, like, just operate under subjective lens and find a way to convince someone through those subjective lens, because if, like, they're just gonna be like, well, I objectively think this. It's, so it's just a non-starter. It just kind of, if anything, it's this thing where you get really super like insane about, like, with like moral places, political philosophy, but it's like, I don't know, to me it's almost like kind of just fucking dumb, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, maybe not dumb might be the right way to put it, but it's like,
I think you're right, dude. I think dumb might be the
because it's like, at the end of the day, we operate in a subjective realm. Like, even if there is this magical objective thing, it's kind of this like ethereal thing, and it's like there's almost no point in really, like, I don't know, like, laying claim to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, even like natural rights, people will be like, well, natural rights, well, because they're derived from nature or whatever. It's like, how can you objectively prove anything that comes from nature? You're already in a subjective place as it is. Like, it doesn't. I don't know.
No, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you again, because there is no like plant that just sprouted out of the ground with a magical scroll that said these are your natural rights. It's like, no, humans, a group of humans, right? Like fucking what Adams, or not Adam Smith, John Locke, and whoever, Keynes, I think, right? I'm fucking this up.
I mean, it depends what you're talking about.
But John Locke, right? I think he was one of the ones that came up with sort of natural rights. And it's like, yeah, but this is one guy's take on the whole thing, and it's his definitions that are being put out. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can agree with them, and a ton of people can agree with them, but you can have other people that disagree. And again, who's to say that person's wrong? The disagreeer. Yeah. So, okay, cool. Well, I feel like, yeah, I agree with you 100%, dude. This shit, you can try to get as intellectual as you want with this shit, but at the end of the day, it comes back to like, does it even really matter? Like, it all sounds kind of stupid. You still got
to convince someone, and you got to utilize subjectivity to convince them. And using this like appeal to authority, which saying, hey, there's this objective thing, it's essentially kind of just an appeal to authority, whether you're right or wrong. And to them, they're just like, well, you're just saying it's subjective. So it's like, it's almost no point in even like making an appeal to it, because if they don't already agree with that objective starting point, I guess that would be the time it would work. And that kind of is like, that's why I think there is utility in like religion and like natural rights and stuff. And I don't just throw them out. Like, I actually do think there's utility in it. There are people who are like, well, if I want to get someone to the same conclusion as me, and they already have religion, or they already have some sort of conception of natural rights, I can kind of manipulate that, use that to my advantage, because I would like them to get to the point where they're like, you know what, let's not hurt people and let's not take their shit. Like, that's the end goal I want to get them to. And if I can be like, you know what God said, I don't care. Like, I don't have to agree with it, but it's what I'm using to get you where I want to. Yeah. And if I can get you to that conclusion, then you know what? Maybe later I can be like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I like your endpoint you're at, but maybe let's work on your logic and how you got here. Like, I kind of utilize the missteps in your logic to get where I want to. Let's make sure we can keep you on this solid ground by fixing your logic for future examples when I'm not manipulating you towards good.
Yeah. I love it, dude. The manipulation towards the light. I love it, man. That's where it's like, is manipulation okay if it's for the good? And chin scratcher. So yeah. So speaking about just like, I guess, anarchy and libertarianism,
Oh,
right?
just real quick,
Yeah,
just
go
to
ahead.
be clear, when it comes to manipulation, I don't mean I wouldn't say necessarily lying, because I don't think it's good to lie to people. But like even in my example where I was saying I was arguing from a perception of religion or from a place of natural rights, I can even make that argument and be completely clear that like, well, I have a different conception. Or maybe just don't bring it up, like, because I'm not saying necessarily lie, because I feel like if you bring someone somewhere by lying, like it is to some extent kind of just, I mean, obviously we get back to what's morality, but in a sense, at least by my conception of morality, it's kind of sort of iffy, a little bit immoral. It just doesn't feel right. Like, why lie to someone if you don't have to?
Yeah,
I mean, like, so it's better to be honest. It's also like you're building a reputation with this person. So you can even like, you can make the argument from natural rights or from Christian anarchy, or even like they're like, I don't know, from Judaism or whatever the fuck works for you. But that doesn't mean you have to. It's kind of the same idea as like trying to get politicians to fucking do the right thing by appealing to the Constitution. I don't give a fuck about the Constitution, but like, you know, they kind of do. So why wouldn't I use it? You know, and that doesn't mean I'm lying. That doesn't mean I'm lying, because I use the word manipulated, and that has connotations. But that might have been a little bit hyperbolic. But it is like, I think it makes a difference if you're lying or not. Like, I mean, to some extent, depending on the situation, I may lie to get someone to get them where I want to do, but I'd much rather not. Like,
yeah.
you know, like, I mean, obviously that would be an intense situation to where I felt like I had to lie for something. For something like that, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
But, like,
Yeah. And I mean, that's, you know, again, man, yeah, we're it's a tricky sort of subject, because again, I think manipulation for the most part, right? I like, it's a very sort of, it's a word I try to sort of stay away from as far as like acting in that capacity. But there can be times where it's manipulation for good, and then it's like, all right, is it bad that you are pushing this person? But then again, dude, it's subjectively, you think that it's good pushing them that way, but maybe they don't. Yeah. So then we're getting fucking crazy philosophical again. But so basically, sort of to I guess bring the conversation, I guess not necessarily full circle, but to keep it going. So yeah, basically, man, as far as how I sort of got to where I'm at with my sort of ideology, where I just kind of came to, all right, yeah, libertarianism is sort of what I, you know, again, you don't have to use labels to define yourself. I'm not going to go around and like tattoo libertarian across my face and tell it to everybody that I meet. But if somebody asks, it's like, yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. And it's because, dude, for me, man, it's the only fucking thing that makes sense right now. Like, and maybe it may not even right now, just ever. Like, it's the only fucking thing that makes sense. Like, let others be, right? Don't hurt anybody, and let me do my thing, and don't fuck with me. Right. Basically, like in super layman's terms. Right. That's what libertarianism is. And I just look around, like I was telling Jose before the podcast started, I was like, yeah, COVID is really kind of the tipping stone that hit me in the face like a fucking bag of bricks. I was just like, why am I not allowed to leave my home right now? Like, I'm totally healthy. I'm good. I'm not at risk for any of this shit. Right. And this is still when I was like a little bit like, maybe COVID is, you know, it's killing some people, whatever. Now I'm like, this whole thing is fucking more or less bullshit. Right. I'm like, this is a fucking bad flu season. Right. Call it what it is. It's like nobody's fucking, I mean, I don't want to take it out of context. People are dying. It's not a good thing. Right. Obviously, just like anybody dying is not a good thing. But should we be locked up in our homes and give the government all this authority, this temporary authority, right? And we saw with taxes and personal income tax, temporary personal income tax, and now look at us 100 years later, right? It's the same shit. So it's like, that just got me to the point where I sit there and I go, if you give the government an inch, they take a mile, right? Always, without fail, because fucking these people are just power hungry fucks. And so if we keep giving in to this, right, there's going to be a point where we are what we fucking fought against the whole time, right? Like what America, like what fucking George Washington and all those motherfuckers got away from, right? Like we're very much turning into that. So
yeah, no, I mean, that was definitely, I feel like for a lot of people, it was a turning point. For me, I was already in theory already like in libertarian land. Like I was already in ANCAP. The big transition that COVID did for me was it kind of took theory and started making me more move into application, because I was hanging out in theory land. I didn't really do anything with my thoughts on the world. I did what I very much from a theory perspective was like, oh, I know that, the way that their economy is set up, this is doomed to fail. This is going to go to shit eventually. This is wrong. They're doing this, blah, blah, blah. But it was all in theory. It didn't really affect me in real world. I was like, also part of me is like, yeah, this nation is probably going to go tits up in the next century or two.
Yep.
Like, but this made it way more real world of like, shit, this could be a whole lot sooner than, I mean, it's also like, it's like kind of sort of, I was already going to do it, but it really made me more resolute on other life changes. Like we were talking before, I'm like, my last day in the military is Monday. And it's not, and I've said on other shows too, it's completely selfish. Like cause I have been an ANCAP for a while. It's not like I was like, I didn't understand the moral theory of like what was going on, blah, blah, blah. Like I already was against it before. It's just, I was like, I got a family, I have bills to pay, blah, blah, blah. It was one of those things. And it was also kind of like, it is what it is. But like for me this past year, it was like a selfish thing. Cause I was like, shit, like, I'm like, cause I'm like at 11 years in the military. And so I'm like, I'm like 9 years away from a pension. So I'm like, so for me, I was like, I don't know if I have another 9 years. Like, I don't know what the timetable is on here. And I do not want to be in a place where I'm dependent on the government. Because even if I do another 9 years to get my pension, I'm dependent on this administration or on this whole establishment for, my retirement, whatever, like my medical, like, so I'm like, I need to start moving my life away from this, like in whatever way I can, and become more independent, because it's like, I do think that I don't know when it's going to be, if it's going to be in the next 5 years, it's going to be in the 50, but I think we're in the less than 50 range of like something. I mean, I have my theories. I don't know how exactly it's going to work, but I think I don't think you want to in this next, like, 50 years be in any way dependent on the government if you don't have to be. Like, I mean, this isn't me being like, don't take stimmies if they give out stimmies. Take them stimmies and make yourself more independent. Don't get yourself to a point where you're dependent on them. Yep. Because I do think to some extent, I don't know if whether intentional or a byproduct of a failing nation, I think to some extent, like stimmies are basically a UBI, and they're in a way, like whether they're intentional or just a byproduct of a failing system, they're a way of getting people fucking dependent on this fucking failing thing. So that way it's almost like a parasite, like begging to be able to continue to survive and making its host in a sense dependent on it. So like, I think it's going to be nasty for the people who are dependent. So it's like, and I do think like, say for me being like working for the government, say if I was still working for the government and went to, I think it'd probably be better to be a government worker than like someone who's like, on welfare or something. I think that they typically probably would do better, but I still think it's better to be independent in general. So that's what I'm saying. It's coming from like a selfish place. This is not at all me saying I'm some better than thou person, because I do feel like some people give me this like, oh, well, that's fucking really great of you. And I'm like, I'm kind of a piece of shit. Like that was just like me seeing the writing on the wall. And I'm like, fuck, like, I don't want to be the idiot that 10 years from now was like, well, I knew in theory this was going to be bad. And, like, I just stuck around anyways. Because that's what I'm saying. Like, this past like year or two is very much taking a lot of this theory that I've had over for a good like 5 years or plus, and been like, oh shit, this wasn't just theory. Like it's like, why didn't I believe myself as much? Like I knew this stuff was going to happen, not to specifics, but roughly. But I didn't know like to this extent. Like it kind of. I feel like most people it took them by surprise. Like, whoa, like really? Like even when I thought COVID was bad, I was still like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, because I get it. This is a bad virus or whatever. But it's like, are you guys retarded? Like, like even if this is legit fucking the goddamn plague and they're doing these lockdowns or whatever, you can't comprehend this will be used later.
Exactly.
Like even assuming your fucking worst case scenario, this is fucking awful. Like this is not good. Like even if this is legit, whether it's legit or not, like I don't even care. That's like, if anything, that's almost like this like the focusing on whether COVID's really that bad or not, for the most part, it's kind of the same thing as like this woke culture shit where they get you sucked into debating whether something's racist, and it's like, whoa, that wasn't even what I was talking about in the first place. Like I don't give a shit whether, I mean, I care whether this thing is bad or not, but at the same time, that wasn't my underlying worry.
The fundamental here is that the government's taking way too much authority and power over the people, and we're doing fucking nothing about it. Nothing, dude. That's the crazy part to me, man. Yeah. So speaking, sort of connecting to your point, you said you started doing some things, about it to get yourself more independent. Yeah. So did we, man. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, like right in the thick of the fucking heart of the monster, man. And we sort of saw everything that was going on and we were like, yep, we're fucking out, dude. And now I'm in Texas. Right. Because I was just like, I need the first steps first, even if I don't know how to grow shit right now to be able to provide for myself, or how to fucking, go and take after chickens and, get eggs and shit in the morning. I at least need to get the fuck out of here. Like that is step one. Just get the fuck out of here. Because, dude, for me, man, like, I don't know, dude, these vaccines and shit, I'm like, listen, I don't want to be putting shit inside me, man. And I don't want to have to carry around a passport identification to fucking leave the country and to like go state to state. Like, I don't think that's fucking necessary, man. Like, this is some government construct that they've put on my life, on as a not on my life specifically, but everybody's fucking life. And it's like, I didn't fucking agree to this shit. I want no part of this. Right. So I just, we moved out to somewhere where, it's more free than where we were at. We're still in the US, right? And the US is, fucking just tipping. It's like the leaning power of pizza, right? It's just tipping over slowly. It's going to fucking hit the floor.
Yeah, but you made the right move, though. I do think there's definitely something to moving to the rural areas. I think that's going to be the big divide going forward is we're going to see a fucking rural urban divide. And I recently talked to another show, and I don't know when you're going to release yours because the other guy hasn't released his too, but like I was kind of starting like just thinking as I was talking then, I was starting to kind of connect some dots. And I think there's something to the fact that the rural is this like not haven, but a good place for freedom to move to, because I think in a way that is actually the rural is more close to what in Kapistan or whatever would be like. Because I was thinking through this, and like we are so used to this corporatist fucking system that we have where we think of Amazon, we think of this thing, we think of that. And it's like, if you really think about, like, even just look at it like from a food perspective, if you live on a rural area where like the goal for most people, say if we got to a country where the goal was, you know what, I want to have 5 to 10 acres and just be able to be a little bit sufficient with food and not even like overly, like maybe have a couple cows, maybe have a pig, maybe have some chickens. If that was like the American dream, I actually think we would be better economically. I mean, obviously it'd be people do different, but like think about the decentralized nature of that. And if we were able to get rid of some of those rules, like if everyone was to some extent somewhat independent, and like I know a lot of people are like thinking that's like kind of crude, but I've been thinking through it a lot, and I think we've just gotten so used to centralized systems and thinking they're more efficient when they're really not. So it's like, because you have something like we've had in the past year or so, and it's like a lot of those systems started to kind of like fall apart a little bit, and like the more we centralize them, the more they can fall down. I'm not saying that like the fucking Encapistan is going to be like everyone has a fucking farm, or like super duper like like what you think of when you think of like the Great Depression and like I don't know, this that or the 50s era. But I think it's going to be closer to what we think. That's going to be more closer to what we think it is. So like, yeah, that's kind of, I think, part of why that's a better place to be. Like this idea that we need to all live in these tight little cities and that we need to centralize all of our distribution, our fucking production, everything. Like I feel like it makes way more sense to have like a far more decentralized system, which would just be something as similar as more people having farms, more people, it doesn't make sense that like, because I can't remember how many, I'm talking on my ass a little bit. I know there's literally like a handful of major like bacon distributors in the fucking nation, like major ones. And that's why like right now you go to the store, there's still like in some places hard to bacon. It's fucking like way more expensive. It's because it was such a centralized thing. It's not like it's not that there was an issue with the amount of pigs in the United States. Like it was the fact that our fucking bacon distribution production system was insanely centralized. Whereas like it'd make way more sense if just people were able to get shit from the farm, or if there were more farms and they were, what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's when you get into shit like the USDA and stuff like that. It causes all sorts of other problems. So.
Yeah, no, man. I think that shit, where was I going with this? I think that I think part of the reason why people have gotten sort of more okay and pro centralization is because I think inherently, and again, just like you said, I'm kind of talking out my ass, but this is just my perspective on life, right? My subjective reality and understanding of humans. I think humans are just fucking lazy, man. We're always trying to find the quicker, easier route to the finish line, right? So I think that there's kind of like the devil's like in right in front of your face, right? You literally, it's just like my buddy and I, we talk about this all the time, where it's like, okay, just because it's easier doesn't mean that it's the better choice in the long run, right? Like sometimes, okay, yeah, all right, walking in a straight line to get somewhere versus going around, the fucking bend is going to be easier. But there's some things, man, where you just have to have people who understand the sort of long-term net effect, who can then sit there and go, oh, guys, no. I don't think you know where this is going to fucking end up if we end up centralizing all this shit. But unfortunately, man, it just seems like the people in power, man, right? Like they just want to stay in power. So whatever the fuck they need to do to keep that power going, right, is what they're going to do. And at the end of the day, man, it's really on the people, right? If you look back at the Constitution, I'm not trying to like put all praise and mighty and, oh God, look at the Constitution. I'm just saying, but if you look back at the founding fathers and sort of what this country was based upon, they were very libertarian, and they were very fight back if you believe that your rights are being oppressed. And so you to that degree that you need to fight back against the dictatorship, right? Or the totalitarian government, or whatever you may think it is, oligarchy. And I don't know, man. It just feels like we're getting to a point where it's just getting real fucking weird, man. Like, I don't know, dude. COVID feels like I don't know. 9/11 was its own thing, and that brought along some change, right? Less privacy, more sort of government sort of intervention in your life, right? But this feels, I don't know, man. This feels a bit larger than that. You have any thoughts? Or
I don't know. I do think. By the way, I bumped my mic. Am I still sounding good?
Yeah, you're totally good.
Okay, cool.
Totally
I thought
good.
I bumped out the USB. I just want to be sure.
No,
But anyways, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's a matter of they didn't do it slow as they're supposed to, because it's people always use the example of boiling a frog, or I like to say like kicking a weasel or some shit, because it's like there's a difference. And I feel like they overplayed their hand a little bit here. I don't know. I don't begin to try to understand the reasons or whatever, like. Or like if there was if this was some crazy conspiracy on high that like that's why they overplayed their hand. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, like they overplayed it. I think the mask dropped, I think, and that's why a lot of us, I feel like that it set things in motion where I think it's almost like a domino where I think I don't know. They set things in motion where it's like, I think they're creating a bigger divide. They're accelerating things. They kind of loosened their own control, but then at the same time expanded it in another sense, because I think I've said this many times on different shows, but I think we're going to see going forward something where the state is going to clamp down more in centralized areas. And this is kind of where the urban rural kind of divide is coming. So I do think in one sense, this is going to expand their power, and in another, it's going to reduce it. It's going to expand them over smaller areas. So I do think we're going to see going forward, I think the next like decade, 2, 3, whatever, we're going to start seeing more crazy shit in the urban areas, like authoritarian stuff. And on the other hand, I think it may not be as, because we are always so focused on the negative, but I do think it's going to start being where the rural areas stop really kind of giving as much of a fuck, start be like, nah, we're not doing that. Like, like what, like, and I think part of that too is like, I think it's because they kicked the weasel, and a lot of people thinking like us are like, shit, like, so you moved to a rural area. I live in a rural area, but I changed my lifestyle a little bit to be more independent. So it's like we're kind of creating these rural areas with people that are going to be more independent. So we're kind of, in a sense, creating this divide where it's like, I mean, people do that, or like it's harder to control independent people. So I think like seeing the way this trend is moving, and I think it's going to continue to move this way, we're going to start seeing more independent, less authoritarian, like rural areas, and we're going to start seeing more fucking crazy ass urban areas going forward. Like, and so that's what I'm saying. Like they set in motion events that are like it's kind of creating an opportunity for freedom, but also if you don't act on this opportunity, it's gonna fucking suck for you, basically. Hey, that's the kind of way I see it. So people always go black pill, white pill, and I'm like, I mean, I've been saying clear pill a lot, but I mean, I actually find out later Molebug used it, and I'm pretty sure he used it completely differently. But anyways, the black white pill has kind of failed because it's like, I don't think that it's just this one or the other. This is kind of like the byproduct of how we were raised to be so nationalistic and seeing it as like one or the other. And I think there's going to be opportunities for fucking, you know, freedom and opportunities for, you know, the other. I mean, you know what? Some people might like that because I mean, I will say that there probably will be more of a convenience in some aspect to the fucking authoritarian route. You know, just as long as you shut up and do what you're told. You know, so like, I don't know. I mean, so it's like. And you know, to some extent, it's kind of like if that's what you want to do, go do it. And that's why, like, I've been saying a lot too, even like on my rhetoric, I've been far more divisive in a sense because I'm more like, if you're not on my team, on Team Freedom, you can go fucking eat a dick, go somewhere else. I don't really care. It's not even that I necessarily mean bad for you. I just more want you to go ahead and dive deep into that side. Like, pick your side because I want to open I think with the divide causes unity. So that's what I mean, like with the whole unity movement lately, I've kind of whispered in fucking Reed's ear a lot, like, hey, division's part of unity. So like, yeah.
No, I like your thoughts, man, a lot. I think that very well could be how this ends up playing out, where you've got a lot of crazy shit going on in cities, just like you said, and the people out in the rural areas are just chilling, doing their thing. Because at the end of the day, man, I don't think that the right, the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, whatever it is, right, I don't think that they would give enough of a fuck to try to get out into the rural areas because it's too much effort, man. Right, these people think too independently as it is. It's too much fucking time and resources when you could just get the people that are willingly piling into your cities, right, with basically no resource use at all. You're just like, hey, you know, fucking fly this flag of propaganda and we'll have more people come in. Yes, free everything, right? And so yeah, man, getting back to that sort of circling the wagons on the whole point. Yeah, I'm definitely very happy that I sort of at least started this journey, right? And I'm sort of now connecting with more people like yourself, like Nick Ashley I had on, I think 2 weeks ago. And like this other guy that I talked to a couple of days ago, who's fucking awesome. He's a professor. His name's Connor Dragotis. He works for the Liberty Movement. I'm going to like plug all his stuff. I've got 2 podcasts fully lined up that I haven't gotten out yet because I've just been so fucking busy recently. I'm like, oh my God. So you're going to be my third. And so I got to like get all these out at some point, maybe this weekend. But yeah, man. All right. So total non sequitur. So your background, you went into the Air Force. What prompted that move? Are you happy with that decision? Do you feel like you learned some good stuff there?
Okay. All right. There's a few questions. I've had a couple beers. Why I joined? Bad. No, you're good. Why I joined? I mean, I fucked up college and like. And I've had this talks before. I feel like to some extent, like this was in a weird way a shortcut, and I actually don't think in a good way. So like I guess when I got out of high school, I had the thoughts that like I very much was like once I got out of high school, I was like, all right, I'm a fucking man. I need to go be out on my own and go do my own shit. And I just was like, I immediately was like, I need to leave the fucking house. Like I need to be my own man. And so I went to college. I fucked up college because I was an idiot, and I just like partied like crazy. And then so I was like, shit, I messed that up. So, you know what? I guess I'll go to the military. Because for me, it wasn't like those were, in a sense, almost kind of like the only 2 options. Because it was like, I guess I could stay at home. I could fucking work some, like, in my head, how I probably described that as a dead end job. But in retrospect, I'd be like, you know, that's a job. Like, you can use it as a springboard to something else. Like, there's nothing wrong with, even if it was just something fucking working at Arby's or whatever. It's like, you start there, you work up, whatever. Like, and so like I look back in retrospect and like I wish I had done that. I mean, obviously, like some of the things in my life probably wouldn't have happened. So because I have a wife, kids, but you know, in a sense, I feel like that was actually the more sensible path in retrospect. But I look down on that as if that was like the wrong way because I was like, I need to immediately go be a man and go live on my own or whatever. And it's like, and I just like I had to go do something. And so yeah, I joined the military. so did I mean, you asked if I felt like I did the right thing. I mean, no, I don't think anyone should join the military. I really don't. Like, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah. Please
yeah,
elaborate.
yeah,
Please elaborate.
well, I just think, I mean, okay, I guess to be clear, like, sure, maybe you could take some sort of crazy collapsitarian approach, and even then, it would depend on what you're doing, because like, not everyone is actually directly involved in like something to do with like the killing of people doing that. I mean, there is a collapsitarian argument to be made that like, hey, I'm just leeching off the government to continue its demise. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but whatever. You could probably make some sort of argument, but even then, that would only be for like if you got some job where you were like, I don't know, folding towels at the gym, because there are. That's a big thing. A lot of people don't realize the military is not everyone just off killing people or even having anything to do with the killing. There's so much fucking bullshit jobs in the military. Like, it's just like bureaucratic nonsense at its fucking peak. Like, I don't know. I'm not explaining it, because I mean, like, the military bases are separate. There are whole people in the military that's like, they fucking work at the chow hall and they fucking serve food. And then when you really start thinking about it, you're like, well, that dude is a fucking E7, and all he does is basically run the chow hall, and which is, you know, a restaurant or whatever. Basically a probably, you could say it's like a somewhere between a fucking Denny's and a fucking McD, depending on where you're at, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's some dude who's working here who's a E7. He's basically the equivalent of the manager. And he's probably making like, I don't know, what would I guess? Like if an E7, I mean, I'm just talking on my ass a little bit, but probably around 70 to 80K after taxes. And he's
Jesus,
basically
dude.
just a manager of a fucking, basically a Denny's, essentially. And he's not even the only one. There's probably multiple people who run that spot. So my point being is, and that's just like goes across the entire military. So it's yeah. But anyways, my point being, like, yeah, sure, you can make some sort of like weird niche collapsitarian argument, but for the most part, it's like you're living off of taxpayer dollars and you are contributing towards something that's not beneficial. Like, I just can't. I mean, I don't know who's listening, but I cannot see the military as a beneficial thing. I just can't. There's nothing that we do that really provides any benefit. I just genuinely think that. It's just a complete and utter suck on fucking taxpayer dollars. The idea that we even need a military is retarded. Like, even then, even from a minarchist perspective, the fucking founders had would like I can't. I'm talking on my ass, but I'm not a very good history guy. But they would fucking, like, when it was war, they would like what's the word? They basically put out I forget the term for it, but basically they would hire like a private military, like off the bat kind of deal. And like, so yeah, it's just, we don't need it. Like, the idea that some other country is going to come over here and take over the United States, and then we're just going to fucking be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
In like the most armed nation in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, also too, like, if say we did just not have a military, it's not like we wouldn't just have people that would form up. Like, it's also like, you look at like Afghanistan, look at the terrorists with their like guerrilla fighting. Like, guerrilla fight is insanely fucking effective. Like, it just really is, because it's like you're fighting a decentralized enemy that has no real head, that it's basically, you're never going to win.
Mm-hmm.
You're just wasting your time. And especially us, we're on the other side of an ocean from most of our enemies.
Yeah, no. And the military is an interesting thing, man, because growing up, I was told, obviously, right, you're like, oh yeah, America, greatest country in the world, support our, military, and they all keep us safe from all the bad guys out there. But dude, really, after reading Animal Farm again recently, I was supposed to have read it in high school, kind of fucked off, didn't really do it like at all. Picked it back up recently, read it, and I go, oh, so there's just constantly going to be boogeymen out there, right?
Mm.
There's going to be the terrorists, right? And then there's going to be COVID-19, and there's going to be, who knows what the next, climate change, right? And there's all these boogeymen out there that are, basically thrown around and supposed to keep you in constant fear that something is coming to get you, right? And it justifies the military spending, and and it's just, I mean, I'm with you, man. It's like, who are fucking enemies, really? Like, we're like you said, we're fucking oceans away from almost every other place in the world, right? Except for Mexico and Canada. And like, come on, man. Like, we're cool with Canadians. They're chill, and like Mexicans are, they're all right too. We have, the sort of drug situation going on, but I don't know, man.
And every major attack we've had, or even like it's been provoked. Like it just has. Like so
Mm-hmm.
like people will use 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or whatever as an excuse of why we need a military. And it's like, but if we didn't have a military in the first place, none of those would have happened. Like
Yeah, dude,
like,
so
I mean,
true.
like I know with like Pearl Harbor, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a great history guy, but I know we like blockaded off tons of fucking Japan and stuff to prevent supplies from getting in there with our navy to
Mm-hmm.
prevent them basically commit economic warfare against them. And that is, I mean, not to say that it was okay that Pearl Harbor attacked us, but it's like we very much provoked it. There was a reason why this happened. It just didn't happen in a vacuum. They weren't just like, fuck you, USA. Like it just like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
idea that that's how things work is just fucking. I don't know. Like I mean, we all. I feel like a lot of us had that initial thought before. That it's like, well, out of nowhere, Japan was like, well, fuck you, USA. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like when you really think about it, you're like, why the fuck would they do that? Like they're a
Mm-hmm.
tiny little island. Why would they pick a fight with us? We essentially forced them into a corner to some extent where they had to save face with their nation to be like, hey, we're gonna do something
Uh-huh.
because
Exactly.
they're destroying us economically. And like, and this isn't me taking a side like at all. Like they both suck, but it was like it wasn't like this happened out of nowhere. And 9/11 was obviously like literally fucking Bin Laden like fucking what's the word like he basically pointed to in letters to us why he did it, and it was because
Yep.
of our involvement in the Middle East. Like, and that's not to say it's okay. Like,
Yep.
I'm not a Bin Laden apologist. Like he sucks too. Like just
Yep.
because someone sucks doesn't make it okay to kill innocent people. But it's
Yep.
also like you can also be like, well, why did they kill innocent people? Because someone else killed innocent people.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
there
Yep.
you go.
Yep. It's this revenge, this
Yeah.
constant, it's this what's it called? Not never ending cycle, vicious cycle. It's just a
Mm.
vicious cycle that just keeps going round and round and round, and nobody breaks it because everybody's just constantly getting revenge, revenge, revenge. And it fucking sucks, man, because death, I mean, killing, coercion, that's powerful shit. So it's like, of course you're gonna have people retaliate, right? When you come and you take right these things that people love, right? Their family members, their land, their homes, obviously they're gonna retaliate. And so yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. So, okay, so you said before the podcast, you said you were an agorist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first, if you don't mind, just before I ask my next question, define what agorist means to you. Like, what does that term mean to you?
To me, agorism, I would define it as the philosophy that Sam Konkin laid out in his fucking body of work. And the reason why I say that is I feel like it's only fair because it's him who came up with it. It's him who defined it. And I also will say that doesn't mean I agree with everything Konkin says. I just use that label to be the most accurate thing to describe me. So,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people I think will try to be like, well, this is what agorism is to me. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, sure. I mean, words kind of can be whatever you define them as to some extent. But it's like, if we're going to be real, like Sam Konkin came up with it. He laid out the tenets. I feel like it's only fair that you're like, you define it by his definition. But whatever, do what you want. Because a lot of people will, I mean, the big thing with agorism is one of the main things is they don't agree with utilizing the political system. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people out there who talk about agorism, and what they're just talking about is the other agorist stuff. And they're like, well, I'm an agorist. I just think, this, that. And like, and a lot of people will get into like this, like, well, technically you're not. And in a sense, kind of technically you're not, but I don't care. Call yourself whatever you want. But just that is a main tenet. And so that's how I define it as. So essentially, agorism is it's essentially, I like to look as like a subset of like anarcho-capitalism. And the anarcho-capitalism is just a belief that like in like a private property type system, and that essentially no one has the right to rule over you, kind of deal, abiding by the non-aggression principle. It's basically anarchy that essentially believes that like capitalism is sort of the way, and they
Mm-hmm.
define capitalism as free trade, because that's another thing. When you're talking to socialists, they will define capitalism as something entirely different. They'll define it
Mm-hmm.
as like crony capitalism. So a lot of people don't like using capitalism because it's kind of a loaded term.
Yeah.
But anyways, agorism is more of it's like a tactic of it, because anarcho-capitalism is more just describing something, whereas and agorism goes more to like a tactic type thing. So it's more about utilizing the counter economics, which is essentially, how do I explain it? It's essentially like going into like black and gray markets, which, I mean, it's another term. Like black markets are shits that's illegal. I mean, the way he describes it, there's white markets, gray markets, black markets, and there's red markets. Black markets and red markets are both illegal. Red market is shit that's illegal and immoral. So this would be stuff that hurts people. So like, whether that's killing people, stealing shit, that's a red market. That's never okay. Like we should try our best to try to always go at it. But black market would be stuff that's explicitly illegal, but it's not immoral. Like it's perfectly a moral thing to do. Like, I mean, some people will define the morality by legality, but that's kind of one of the beauty of agorism. And I think it's kind of a mindset. And like you kind of break away from that mindset of illegal being immoral. So, and then gray market's like a mix between black and white. White's like fully legal. So yeah, and gray market's like black market. It would be only if you're like completely off board. So a lot of people hang out in the gray. And it's just the concept of trying to be in that spot as much as you can. It's essentially living anarchy is what it is. Like you're just interacting as if, to some extent, as if the state, I mean, you're still trying to move around the state, but you're trying to your best to be as free as you can be. And a lot of people like to put a straw man up and be like, well, why don't you be a Ross Ulbricht, or why don't you go be the Unabomber living in the woods, or whatever. It's whatever you're the most comfortable with. It's a different mindset, really. It's more just that, like, you know, whatever. I'm gonna fucking evade taxes, and I don't really care. Like, obviously, if the IRS man asked me, I'm like, nope, not doing that. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
So no, I like it. So the whole idea of anarchy is just, or I guess this specific method of agorism is just basically you're living life on your own terms, regardless of what the government says is okay or not okay. You're just doing your own thing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, basically, one of the best ways that I think Khan can put it is, I'm probably this is probably isn't the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, it's like your means should compatible with your ends. So essentially, like, your means in a sense are your ends. So like obviously there's going to be some things that block that, because so your end is anarchy. So what is your means? Anarchy. Just live anarchy. Like, I mean, to the most that you can. Like, and then if you're able to encourage others to do the same, it's like, you know, like if we can get to the point, like say things like Bitcoin, like that's the, or like crypto in general, it's a great way to evade taxes, essentially move around the system. If we can start moving that way, or if you have a cash business, if we're able to find ways around it, man, obviously there are hassles, because you got to be like careful, like, you know, like you don't want to, like, if you're fucking direct depositing shit and not claiming taxes on it, it's going to be like, well, you know, like your bank might report that. So there is some like aspect of like, you got to be careful. It's just basically like essentially living out the way you want to be. And that's why a big part of that too is the political involvement. That's one of the big aspects of it, is that agorism very much advocates that you do not utilize the political system whatsoever, because like you don't believe in democracy. Like, so why are you voting? And I mean, I know a lot of people get in the weeds. I don't remember what Konkin's take was on it. A lot of agorists make the take that like voting is immoral. I more or less look at it from a tactical perspective, and I actually think I do have an argument for why I don't think it works out in the end. I think it's better. I would much rather advocate someone stop voting entirely and basically stop utilizing the system than to start voting for, you know, libertarianism or whatever. Because I'd rather just drop out. Because like, in theory, if everyone just tomorrow stopped fucking voting, not tomorrow, but like say like no one ever voted again, there would be no government. Like it would just disappear.
We're
like,
willing participants.
So it's like, so I am also of the mind that, well, if I can get 10% of people do that, if I can get 20%, if I can get 30%, I think it's moving it that way. And I think, in an ironic sense, I think breaking away from the system actually has effects on the system as well. So I do think in a weird sense that like moving people, like if we say I was able tomorrow snap my fingers and 50% of the fucking nation became agorists, I do think to some extent the state would shift very much. I think it would essentially move closer to like a minarchist state, which is like weirdly kind of like yin and yang too, because I think as you get closer to that, people start thinking, oh, well, it's not so bad, and they kind of fall back into where they like kind of like the state again.
So why do you think that doesn't? I mean, this is a loaded ass question, and I do not expect you to have the fucking perfect answer. But I'm just thinking, why do you think people don't do that? Do you think it's because people just straight up aren't even aware of these ideologies? Right? They've been so indoctrinated since they were young, and our education system is so fucking left nowadays, right? Like lefty for the most part, that people don't even know what the fuck these things are. Anarchism, agorism, libertarianism, right? Like,
I thought you were specifically asking in relation to agorism. Why haven't these things caught on? I think a lot of it's kind of recent in a sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, like anarchy's been around for a while, but like, I feel like in the scope of human history, it's much more recent than we'd like to believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like agorism. I'm pretty sure like the NLM, the first like book was written in like the 80s or something. I might be wrong. So like, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it's a blip in the fucking in the history. I mean, there have been similar ideologies, but I also don't think it's been around as much. But I do think the arm of fucking history is gonna move that way. I mean, I don't know. I also think a lot of people just don't care, and that's perfectly fine.
Dude.
Which is kind of our burden as us, and that's not necessarily bad. That's why I think, like, say, like to bring it back to like agorism, I do think one of the great thing about agorism is it's kind of like using it in application, and when you apply your theory, I think that has effects. Because say, for example, something like I'm just bringing it back to crypto. Like you can totally get a normie to buy into crypto if it becomes advantageous to them in any way. So they're like, cool, I can invest in crypto and make money off of it.
Yep.
Okay, whatever. You just like you just bypassed all theory. You didn't have to convince them about theory at all, and now they're doing an application. So like it's the same thing with like say something like Uber. Like Uber is better than the taxi system with all their unions and shit and all the fucking government involvement. And you know, you were able to convince normies to start using Uber because it was more convenient. It was cheaper.
Again, bypassing ideology and going straight to application.
Yeah. And that's kind of the beauty of application, because it's like, cool. If we can get someone to be on application and theory, that's great. That's awesome. Because it's like, but I mean, really, at the end of the day, if we can get them on application, that's kind of all that matters, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, that weirdly kind of brings back to the little bit at the beginning where it's like, if I can get you to my same conclusion, I kind of don't really give I mean, I care about the means. But I mean, really, like, I need to get you to my conclusion first, then we can work on the means later. You know, I don't know.
Working backwards. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. So okay. So then, all right. So why anarchism, and more specifically agorism versus libertarianism? Is it just straight up, you don't think government ever in any way, shape, or form, even if it's totally voluntary and held amongst a very small group of people and held in check by, ideally held in check by a small group of people, that's just not, you're not about it, don't like it? Or do you like it, but you just like anarchy more?
I mean, okay, here's the thing. For one, I think voluntary government is a contradiction in terms. So I mean, okay. Like
totally 100%.
Sure, theoretically, if you got a voluntary government, cool, whatever. I don't care. I mean, I only care if it's voluntary. I just think government by its very design
is always coercion.
It's there's like a non-coerced government. It's just kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's essentially, it's kind of the same concept. I don't know if you know Walter Block. A lot of people give him shit of like, because he said before, I believe that you could sell yourself into slavery essentially. But it's like kind of like, well, who would do that? Like, it just doesn't, like, it's, I don't know. I forgot I had a point there. But anyways, to bring it back, also libertarianism, I guess it sounds like you're describing minarchism and anarchism. I feel like a lot of people do this where they'll say libertarianism and what they mean is minarchism. And that's a common thing, because a lot of people are like, will differentiate libertarian and anarchist. I think anarchism can be like a subset, like ANCAP, I think is a subset of libertarian. I think ANCAPs are libertarians. It's like a subset of libertarian. Like anarchist is kind of goes across the entire spectrum, obviously, because there's ANSOCs and comms. Like, but yeah, I mean, I prefer a minarchist government. Like, but I also, ironically, I keep saying this because this always comes up in conversation. I need to find this quote, but I remember vaguely there was a quote from Rothbard that was something along the lines of essentially that we need to be abolitionists, and then in effect we will get incrementalism. But if we're incrementalists, we basically don't get shit. Like, I define it. Obviously, worded it way more eloquently than I did, but that's the essence of the statement: is that if we're abolitionists, we will essentially, like, you're kind of like, it's like if I ask for 100 and you give me 80, it's like, okay, whatever, we're moving the right way. Like, I'm probably not gonna get the 100, and like the same way with like anarchy or abolitionist or being an abolitionist. It's, you're probably not gonna get exactly everything you want, but you're always pushing for it. So like, but if you're an incrementalist, people know you're an incrementalist. They know you will accept less than better, and they'll probably fuck you some other place later. So
be an abolitionist on the face, knowing.
Well, no, in reality too. So it's like you're never satisfied because you're like, I didn't get what I wanted, but whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you're always pushing forward. So as a subset, as a positive subset of your abolitionist nature, you're getting incrementalism.
Yes.
even though the goal at the end of the day is still to be abolitionist and get your goal accomplished. Yeah, no, I like it. I like.
But if you're an incrementalist, it's like you're just probably going to get. I mean, yeah, you may still get an increment, but it's or you probably won't get anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like the difference. It's kind of like if I ask for 100, I might get 75, but if I ask for 75, I might get 50. It's kind of the same idea. Like it's really all it is. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, but still, even that, at the end of the day, you need to truly be an abolitionist, truly be an anarchist. Because ironically, I think my path going forward, I don't think governments are ever going to magically not exist. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe one day, I think there might be pockets of areas that are free or pockets that are more free. Because like I've said before, the way I see the future with like this like urban rural divide, I think even these rural areas, it's still going to be part of a state. It just will probably be a state that has a much cares much less, you know what I mean? And even then that state is going to be more focused on its urban areas because it's just not going to be able to enforce itself in the rural areas as much. But there's still a state. It's just a lesser state. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so. I feel like the only way that we truly get to the point where there's no government in a hypothetical land, right, is you just have to have enough people that value freedom enough. Right. And it just seems like, there's a large swath of people that really fucking love looking down on others and telling them what to do. Right. Like they don't like, it's one thing to value freedom for yourself, but you have to also then value that for other people. Right. It has to be a two-way street. It can't just be, oh, I value my freedom, but I don't value theirs. So it's like, no, dude, it's by your very nature, if you value your freedom, the whole idea is that you respect others as well. But there's all these motherfuckers, dude, that feel, and like, here's the thing, man, I get it. I do get it I don't think it's right. I don't agree with it, but I do get where this sort of woke cancel culture sort of social justice warrior movement is coming from, because these people, right, for the most part, if you look at them objectively, I'm just saying, a lot of them are sort of misfit types that have that feel like they're down and out, right? They're down on their luck and they're finding power in this movement where they get to be a part of it and then tell others what to do because they've always been told what to do, right? That's kind of how I see it in a sense. I don't want to paint in broad strokes and say that is the movement 100%. Remember, I'm a dumbass. I'm trying my best to try to describe this based on my personal experience, but like, I get that notion, but that, in my, again, subjective reality, right? I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's right. At the end of the day, even though you were oppressed or you feel bad or whatever the fuck happened to you, right? You should, again, this is me telling other people what to do. Me personally, I'll talk from my perspective. I would just want to advocate for just fucking equality for all. And just because some other group you believe was higher than you, right, is now the target of your ire. I don't know. I'm going on a fucking rant, dude. Yeah. But basically, it's like, I get where they're coming from, but it's just misplaced. I feel like what they're doing is misplaced.
Yeah. I think a lot of the issues and a lot of crux of what we've been talking about the past, like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, I think we need to start having a different view on what government is, what anarchy is. Like, for example, like, anarchy is not a location. Like, it's a relationship, it's a mindset. It's, like, and then also I think we need to realize what a state is, what the government is, all that it is at its root. While we do have physical manifestations of it, you have military, you have cops, you have Congress, you have whatever. At the end of the day, all it is a psychological phenomenon. And what that thing is the belief in authority, the idea that there are people out there who believe they have the right to rule others. On the other hand, the people that believe that there are people who have the right to rule them. And that's all it is. So like, that's why it's like we're battling a mindset here. It's like, man, fuck, what's the Bible verse? It's like we're not fighting. God, I wish I remember. I had it in my top of my head. I used to be way more like religious when I was a kid. But it's like we're battling essentially. It's not a battle of flesh and blood. It's a battle of the mind or a battle of spirits or whatever. And that's kind of what we have here. Like, we're not the idea that, and that's kind of what the beauty of like agorism is too. Is like you can in a sense, I mean, you can have anarchy or the closest thing to it, or you might even be able to have it. Like, if you really want to, like, you can or that's why I said it's like a relationship. It's like, how do you deal with others? Your mindset. Like, if you don't believe that people have the right to rule over you, in a sense, you kind of, in a way, are living anarchy. Like, yeah, you may think there's a cop, and like, but all you realize is like, that guy right there, he has a gun, and I don't want to get shot by him. He has no right to rule me, but I'm gonna act properly so as not to get shot. And like that, in a sense, is kind of, in a way, almost anarchy. Like, you are in your head that the dude doesn't have a right. Like, so it's like all you can control is yourself. And then like it's also kind of a relationship and how you deal with others. So you can further that as well. But I mean, the idea that like that we're gonna have this magical location, there may be locations, there may be groups of people that feel that way. But I think it's more, we need to focus on the mindset. That's the big thing. Like, realize what we're fucking going for. And that's why I like to try it. A lot of people shit on theory, but I like to focus on theory because like I can talk to normies about current events and this and that. But if you're just talking about like why, this nation was overplayed their hand with this or that, like, are you really getting them to the deeper theory of why that's not okay? And like, are you really changing their mind? Like, I mean, I can get using them as a in to get them to that and use that as an example of why that wasn't okay. But it's really just a deeper idea that they're going to start thinking that way is really what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I 100% agree with the theory being important. That was the thing that when I started being like, all right, I had always questioned the government, right? I was like, I don't know, some fucking power hungry motherfuckers up on a hill telling everybody what to do. But when it got to the point where COVID hit and was like, you can't leave your house, I had this innate urge inside of me to just go, all right, I got to figure out what it is exactly that I believe in, right? Because not because I have this overwhelming desire to slap a label on my face, but just because I don't fucking know. I don't know, and I need to start piecing the puzzle together and start listening to theory, right? So I picked up an audio book called Libertarianism. Literally, that's the title of it. I forget who wrote it, but that book was sort of the start down the path for me. And Mike Maloney's Investing in Gold and Silver. That was honestly probably pre the Libertarianism book. And if you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check that shit out. Especially with the crazy inflation that's fucking happening right now. But anyways, yeah, so the theory is really fucking important. It's good to be able to then apply practical examples of, this is when theory works, this is when, blah, blah, blah. But getting the theory and understanding the definition, the core principles of it, I'm still trying to do that. That's why I'm trying to talk to people like you and trying to talk to, Nick and, Connor and these other people that I've met on Twitter who have been in this shit for way fucking longer than I have, because I'm still trying to grasp the concepts of sort of what this is all about, right? Because I think it's important, man. That's like one of the reasons why I wanted to so I switched sort of the structure of this podcast away from what it started out as to more sort of like, I'm evolving as a person, and I kind of just want to take other people, if you guys think that's cool and you're up for this with me, take you down the path with me, and we can grow and learn together, right? And so yeah, I don't necessarily really have a point with all that, but just responding to what you were saying, I agree, man. That theory is super important.
To bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like, I feel like, I don't know your exact conclusion, but I feel like your conclusion is similar. And so now we're doing like kind of what I talked about earlier. Well, now we're working on your logic. Mm-hmm. So and like, you're at this the right conclusion or similar or somewhere in the correct path. So we're going to work on your logic that got you there. And probably along the way also refine your conclusion because of utilizing that logic that got you there, strengthening it. Not to say that you necessarily end up thinking what I think or whatever. Hopefully, what I think or ideas that I espouse will somehow ring true to you and affect your thinking and so on with Nick and stuff. Because I know Nick. Nick's a great guy. We obviously have we have disagreements on when it comes to like shit like this. That's fine. Whatever. I could be wrong. Who knows? I'll probably change my mind in a year from now. I don't know. So these are just theories I'm working with now. So
no, and that's what I love about people in the liberty movement, dude, is like, for the most part, I'm only speaking from my personal sort of purview, right? But it's cool. People are pretty open-minded for the most part, right? They're open to hearing your argument and sort of your thoughts on things and saying, okay, I get that, but I don't agree with it, but like, have you considered this, right? It's not this like slamming it down in your face, no, you're a fucking idiot. It's got to be this way only. Right. And, that's what, dude, my education felt like that, man. Like I just finished up school a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And there was literally, I was having lunch with a group of my people. And there was this one girl who was just like, oh, hey, I was making a point about something, I forget. And she was like, oh, hey, but by the way, hold on. Check yourself real quick. Cause remember, you're a white male. So you don't really, basically your opinion doesn't really matter here.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
this is at work?
no, this is at fucking school, dude. This was in law school, man. This was in fucking. God.
I just can I mean, I'm also a mechanic. I'm in the military. Like I've been doing that for the past 10 years. So I just it's funny people say this shit, but I just it's funny to try to put because I'd be like, excuse me, bitch.
No, straight up. But dude, here's the thing though. I didn't, this is what I'm saying. I didn't understand shit well enough. I felt like it was off. I was like, this makes no fucking sense to me that I'm not allowed to have an opinion. It's like, okay, great. So my parents can both be I always use this example, but my parents can both be crack addicted, right? And I fucking had to work, 7 different jobs just to get the money to come here. But I'm not allowed to speak on poverty, right? But, if you have a black dude who, comes from multi-millionaire, fucking Fortune 500 owning, father, whatever, and he comes in, he automatically has a right to speak on poverty just because his skin's black and my skin's white. Like I have more in common with people. Like, I'm not saying that's my story. That's not my story. I'm just using it as a hypothetical, right? It's like that hypothetical person would have more in common with poor people than the fucking black dude who came from wealth. Right. It's not about skin color. And that's the fucking crazy shit that dude, it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like
it's ironic. Those same people will be the same ones that were like, if you said something like, well, I make sure my doors are locked anytime I see a black man walk by, they'd be like, what? But it's literally okay, you can make the argument. Maybe there's some slight merit that as a white person, you're more likely to X, Y, and Z. But there's also, on the other hand, well, as a black person, you're more likely to X, Y, and Z. That doesn't mean I think that. It's literally like that. Or what I just pointed out is the exact same thing on the opposite foot. But it's like, why is it okay to be like, you just assume I had a good life or a better upbringing because I'm white? We can even make an argument that's statistically more likely that I did, but you don't fucking know that.
Yeah, dude. Yes. 100%. I love that. Yeah. And that's sort of the, the weird logic games that you play with people. Right. And it's just like, guys, I don't know, man. For me, the logic just falls apart a lot of the time with all these fucking arguments coming from the social justice movement and all this shit. I'm just like, if you take this one step further logically than what you're taking it to right now, the whole fucking thing falls apart. Like this just does not make sense to me. But I think at the end of the day, man, I feel like their head's in the right place, but their sort of how they're going about accomplishing it is all fucked up. So anyways, man. All right. Well, cool. Well, I feel like I've exhausted probably most of my points that I wanted to bring up. It's kind of late and I don't want to keep you too much later unless you have a burning desire to sort of go off on another tangent.
We're good. This is probably a good spot. I don't have really much else to say. If we keep going, you'll start realizing how little I actually know.
Probably me too, dude. Me as well. All right, man. Well, listen, pleasure to have you on. I'm sure we'll connect in the future at some point as well. And I'll try to get this podcast posted probably this weekend because thank God tomorrow just got deemed a federal holiday. So I have a 3-day weekend, which I was not expecting, which is fucking awesome. So anyways, all right, cool. Well, any last words for anybody listening?
No, for anyone listening that wants to check me out, I have the No Way Jose podcast. I'm on YouTube. I'm also just about everywhere audio podcasts are at, just about all the podcatchers. I mean, if you do like my stuff and you want to support, patreon.com, just No Way Jose 2020. Yeah, that's really all I got. Twitter is the best place probably to get a hold of me if you want to talk to me for whatever reason. I have a lot of fun on Twitter. I'm Jose Galison or at Jose Galison Jose. I mean, you can type in Jose Galison in the fucking search bar, you'll find me. So yeah.
And that's JOSEGALISON, Jose Galison. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, yeah. I can attest He's fucking great on Twitter. That's how I found him. That's how we communicate. That's how I fucking communicate with everybody on here. So anyways, all right, cool. Well, guys, I'll let you run. And see you guys next time.